Good evening, good morning, and good afternoon on this beautiful Sunday. Today, we're going to go over the interesting facts about, interesting beliefs in what are ghosts, what are demons, and what are angels and demons, and all of those. So, um, the devil is not real. Let's get to the video.
But if you already know, how can I make a choice?
Because you didn't come here to make the choice. You've already made it. You're here to try to understand why you made it.
All right. So let's first, when we get into the discussion about whether we believe that angels and demons exist, let's first kind of go over a central tenet of what I believe here, and what I feel is, who God is. God is everything that exists. Nothing exists outside of God. So therefore, God is all. God is the I am. God is everything. So that's where we start. That's where we begin when we start to discuss the spiritual realm here, as this agnostic would say. So coming from there, the study, or when you study the paranormal activity, it's very interesting that you'll find that one of the common denominators of the spirit beliefs in the spiritual realm is that if you go across all nations, all countries, cultures, everywhere, there generally is, everywhere you go, a belief in the afterlife of some kind. Okay, so that's very interesting because we sometimes get bogged down by we believe in science, or they believe in God, or atheism, or you believe but then there's this general belief across the world of 8 billion people that mostly believe in some kind of afterlife, and so much so that they have experienced this afterlife in some kind of way. Okay, so that's kind of an interesting tidbit there, an interesting fact that a lot of people have either seen ghosts or demons, what have you, or they've seen angels, or whatever the case may be. So keep that in mind as we also go in, and that's kind of the second idea of where we're coming from here, that a lot of people believe in this stuff. It's everywhere you go. So there's just too many people all around the world that have experienced in some kind of way the paranormal activity. So like I said, going back to the first tenet, nothing exists outside of God, right? And God is everything that exists. So what does that mean for you? What does that mean, for your belief in the paranormal? All right. So what are angels and demons? What are spirits? What are ghosts? This agnostic, the answer is a phenomenon of both light and dark aspects that are created by God and by human beings to experience life in contrast. Okay? Let me break that down, because I know it's kind of a little weird, the way that I said that. What do you mean, Uncle James? What the hell do you mean? What the hell are you talking about? All right. Contrast is life experienced in both the good and the bad. That's what I mean by contrast. So we experience both good and both bad. Okay? So to boil this down in the most basic description, let's say the most basic answer to this question of what are these things? We experience life, right? To learn about God. We experience life to learn about the lessons that God has put here on earth, primarily and ultimately because God is reflecting himself through us so that we can experience life, right, differently. So herein lies the key to all of this. When we first understand that all of this that we live, all of this that life that we live is by choice, right? So when we live life, it is because we have chosen to be here. We created in participation with God our bad and our good and everything that we experience here on this earth, right? So keep that in mind when we're talking about this. That all of this is by choice. It is by our own creation in participation with God. So to keep it short, we can classify three major types of people, or maybe a couple of major types of people. There are those who have experienced the spiritual realm, such as ghosts and afterlife, or spirits, demons and angels, and so on, and those that have not. All right, so those are the two very extreme parts of the spectrum. I know people have have experienced this in many different ways. So I myself have rarely ever seen a ghost. I mean, I've experienced a few things that I can't explain, but I've never seen a ghost, never heard a disembodied voice, or seen a spirit, or an angel, or anything like that. I'm a bit of a no field when it comes to spiritual activity, and this is by choice, right? I have chosen to not experience these things in so much as other people have, and that I've said that a long time ago to myself, that I wasn't going to need to experience these things. That may change. I may, maybe here and, later on I may decide that, hey, it's worth the experiencing because so many people around the world have experienced this, whether they want to or not, right? So that might be kind of interesting to go and maybe start experiencing them and allowing myself to, experience some of these things in a controlled manner. So, but we'll see. I'll let you know if that is something I choose to do. But for now, I haven't seen much in regards to a spiritual realm. But there are these two types of folks, and they're kind of, there's everybody in between, but there's these two types. Some those that don't, and those that do experience these things. So it's interesting that when you see that it backs up the idea that everyone here is born on this earth with a specific purpose and karma. What would be my karma? Karma basically is a way of saying we are here to do what we're here to do. Okay? What is our purpose? So the reason why that backs it up is because depending on your purpose and what your karma is, what you're here supposed to be doing, may preclude the idea of having spiritual experiences where you see ghosts and spirits and things like that. Right? And in some cases, your karma may need to include that experience. Right? So if I'm here on this earth and my choices that I have made already before I was born to come and experience earth, may or may not include the idea of ghost, right? So, meaning we all come to earth, we live and die. There are some people that live and die without ever seeing a ghost. or rarely ever seeing one, or something like a ghost or a spirit. They may have seen angels, they may have prayed and had, spiritual experiences like that, but not everybody is going to have the same experience across the board. What is interesting is that a lot of people do in the world. All 8 billion people, most of us have, some experience or another. All right, so let's differentiate two different types of beings or spirit beings that are going on here that we tend to classify when we explain these things. There are human spirits that are here on this earth. They live and they die, and then they go back to the spiritual realm. Those are human spirit beings. Then there are non-human entities or spirit beings that are not human, meaning they don't live. They're not a human being. So most agree that, I would say most people in the world agree that there is some kind of afterlife, some kind of spiritual realm, meaning that, or more so when a human being dies, they go outside of the body into what is called a spiritual realm, or also known as the afterlife. Now, science and quantum physics has already postulated the existence of many different dimensions outside of the one that we live in now. So the idea is not so far-fetched in the realm of science, but it's what we see when the human being goes outside. Let's say what we experience as a human being outside of the human body is a human being that's in another dimension. So when the human being dies, they are then extra dimensional. So there's the first classification of what we see in terms of ghosts and the afterlife and spirits, as we see human entities. They're former human beings. They're in spirit form, and they either haven't passed on or haven't gone on to wherever it is they're going on to their next life, or going to heaven, or whatever it is they're supposed to be. The other classification of things that exist in the spiritual realm are the non-human entities. Now, this is the interesting part, and the interesting thing about the spiritual realm. It's not quite what you think. Angels, demons, they're non-human spirits, non-human entities, in other words, that have either been created by God, or they've been created by the human mind. Never underestimate the power of the human mind. People can, at times, create these entities by their own experience inside of themselves. They kind of pop out of our heads as a result of, like gremlins, as a result of the things that we do. If we're dishonest with ourselves, if we're dishonest, there's lessons that we need to learn. Our lives that we're living is not necessarily in alignment with who we are and our purpose. These things then pop out of us, out of our minds, to facilitate an experience or a lesson, in other words. So it's very important, number one, that when everything that you do in life, you should be setting an intention. Particularly the more emotions that are involved in something, the more you should be setting the intention that, if you do not want to see spirits or demons or angels or anything in the spiritual realm, then you should set that intention. Because sometimes it's the things that we long for, the things that we wish for, the little mental games that we play for ourselves create these entities that in other words, we create our very own demons. And this happens when we're not listening to our hearts. We're lying to ourselves. We're, like I said, we're being dishonest, and these things happens, and you get sometimes a demon that will pop out and that's there to facilitate a lesson that you're supposed to learn, right? So these things have a purpose in our lives. These things are created by ourselves, by our minds, and they're also created by God to facilitate a purpose. And that's our purpose is for us to grow spiritually. So keep that in mind. Now, like I said, it's always important to set our intentions when we're doing things, so that way we're not allowing just inadvertently these entities coming about every now and then. Here in a little bit, I'll go over a secret exercise, a meditation exercise to help facilitate setting your intentions, but also facilitate you being honest with yourself. And I'll go over that here in a few minutes. Now, we sometimes create demons with our minds, sometimes inadvertently. But also sometimes these things, entities, can have been created by God Himself. Now let's go over that because that's very interesting. As I said before, nothing exists outside of God, and God is in all that exists, right? That means He is I am. There's nothing outside of God, right? So there's a purpose to His creation. God does not exist or hasn't created life in order to be worshipped, by beings with mindless prostration. That's not the purpose of God's creation here in life. And the reason why I say that is because God is everywhere. God knows everything, and God is all powerful. So how can an all powerful God need anything? He doesn't. God doesn't need worshipers. That's not why He's created life. While God can't be anything less than Himself, He can also, though, expand, right? Thus, God has created life. And God has created this life with the illusion and separation of Himself. And this is to facilitate both the positive and negative polarities of existence, right? This is so that we are divided from our knowledge of who we are. So God creates reality, seemingly dark and distant from God, with forces that facilitate both positive and negative polarities of existence. And thus we have what we call angels and demons. And I'm referring to the more primal forces of reality that make up both physical reality. You have the void of space, you have starlight, and when they contrast with each other, them being opposite of each other, and then the interaction creates life out of that. You get the creation of life from simply two molecules coming together, two atoms coming together, the hydrogen atoms, hydrogen molecules coming together, and they explode, and then all of a sudden you have a star and you have life. Now, angels and demons are created by God out of this primal force, both the negative and positive polarities, in order to facilitate the existence or the illusion that separates us, or gives us the illusion that we're separated from God, which we're not. In reality, we're all part of God, and we're all with God, and God is with us. Like I said, nothing exists outside of God. He is within everything. But we have this veil over our eyes so that we can't see Him. We're divided. The knowledge has been taken away from us of who we are. We are eternal beings, right? Having a temporary human experience. So we're here to learn these lessons now. We make choices coming into this existence, and these choices are what we call our karma. And it's saying karma, again, is what we're here to do. And so these entities, whether you call them angels or demons, help facilitate those lessons that we're here on earth to learn. And here's another interesting tidbit. The devil does not exist, right? God doesn't have a nemesis. That God doesn't need a nemesis. God is so all powerful and all knowing and is everywhere. There could be no nemesis. God does not have a nemesis. It just doesn't work that way. There's just no challenge, right? I mean, there's no comparison. The devil, the demons, or whatever, you cannot give what cannot be given. So there is no, you have a soul, but your soul cannot be given away. You can have the illusion that you're giving your soul away, and therefore you give away your power to someone else or something else, like a demon or a devil or something like that. And that's a choice that you make either through life circumstances or even intentionally. But it's not real. And so what happens is when you take your power back and you come to the realization that these things, whether they're demons, angels, or devils, are either something that you have created or God has created, you have control over them. Right? So you can give up your power, you can take it back, and you realize that these things are here in order to facilitate your life experience here on earth. The Bible itself has many examples of spiritual beings and encounters with entities of that we classify as the spirit. But there's very little mention of a devil. There's Isaiah chapter 14. There's 1 Samuel 29, and those are mistranslated. Is actually Jerome, a Roman Catholic translator, who was tasked with translating the Hebrew into the Septuagint, which is the Latin version of the Hebrew Torah. And he admitted in his later works that he mistranslated the Hebrew in order to simplify it for the Latin, right? Modern translations of the Bible have correct translations of those particular Bible verses, and I find that ironic. But in Isaiah 14 and Samuel 29, the mistranslation of the word Lucifer was Hallel, which actually means morning star or the bright star, not Lucifer. These terms were adjectives, not nouns. They're not proper nouns. They're not describing a character in the Bible. These are adjectives describing a particular character that in the Bible that existed at that time, which I believe at that time was the king of Babylon at that time, which is what those verses were referring to. The bright morning star that had fallen so far. It wasn't about a devil, it was about a living human being at that time that existed. So it had been mistranslated. Now, if you go look at the modern translation of it, like the NIV and the new international, the new versions like that, they have correctly termed those things. So that's interesting. Devil doesn't exist. Some people are going to disagree. Some people are going to die on that hill and believe that there's a devil. And hey, you know what? So be it. You can live on that. Die on that hill, and we'll come to find out. We'll settle up. When it's all said and done. But this is the agnostic belief, right? When you come to the realization that you take your power back, and that you're not going to be influenced by these forces, whatever they may be, real or not, You're going to take your power back, and you're going to realize that you have the control over that. You can set your intention and say, no more. So as I said earlier, there was going to be an exercise that I was going to go over that to help set your intention. It's also going to help facilitate self-forgiveness. And that's going to be very important when we're discussing, taking your power back. So I want everyone, this is just, give me a few minutes. This is going to be an breathing exercise where you're going to be setting some intention, right? So what you need to do is you need to go into a place that is free from distraction. If you're able to do this on your own by closing your eyes without being distracted, well, good for you. It's very important to breathe when it's quiet, and you can focus on your breathing. Now, this particular technique of breathing is where you focus on your breath as you inhale and you exhale, and that's all you focus on. And any thought that comes into your head, you immediately stop. Any emotion that starts coming through your mind, oh shit, did I leave the oven on? Did I leave the coffee maker on? What am I supposed to do? Stop that. Well, make sure that the oven is off, of course you want to do that, But breathe in and out, focus on the breath. You continue to do that for minutes upon minutes to the point where your mind has settled and you've cleared your mind. This is called the practice of meditation with no mind. This is a very powerful, but also can be very dangerous technique. So you need to set your intention before you do it when you're going to start your meditation, right? Because when you clear your mind, you become a beacon, a transmitter or receiver for communication from the spiritual realm. So it's important to set your intention that as I'm doing this right now, there is to be no interactions, no demons, no devils, no communications from spirits, because what you're doing right now is you're focusing on yourself. You're not here to listen to anybody talk. Okay? So set that intention. So once you have done the breathing technique where you're focusing on your breath and you're eliminating any thought that comes into your brain, you're eliminating any emotion that comes in, and you're just focusing on that breathing. You've cleared your mind. This is when you begin to say, all right? And this is going to be a very powerful statement. There's two parts of it that we're going to go over. The first part of it, I forgive myself for allowing myself to believe in demons. From here, no more. And say that statement as much as you need in order for it to sink into your mind. I forgive myself for allowing myself to see spirits when I don't want to. From here, no more. And this is a technique that can be used for any number of issue that you may be dealing with that you want to change in your life. Because the first part of that, if you notice, I forgive myself, means that you're taking back the power and you're saying, I have control over this. So now I'm forgiving myself for allowing it to have control over me when it never needed to. You see what I'm saying? And the last part of that is, from here on, no more. This doesn't exist as me. Okay? I forgive myself for allowing myself to be bothered by a spiritual realm. From here, no more. I forgive myself for allowing myself to have fear of the devils or demons. From here, no more. So these are very powerful statements. You're taking forgiveness and you're bringing that into your own heart, and you're forgiving it as yourself so that it no longer exists as your being. Demons out there, if they exist, spiritual, non-spiritual, non-human entities out there are very afraid of this statement. I forgive myself. Because not only are you taking back your power and you're taking your own forgiveness, but you're also saying that you and I, this demon and you, are one and equal as one, and that no longer exists as me. To hear no further. This no longer exists. It no longer is in my existence. Okay? Very powerful statement, very powerful breathing techniques. Make sure you set your intentions. But I also do want to mention that in some cases, I know that there are people out there who have been given spiritual gifts to see spirits. They're called psychic mediums or clairaudiences and so forth. And these people usually tend to go through life seeing these things, and they have no choice. It just happened. They see spirits everywhere they go. They see entities, whether they're human spirits or non-human spirits. They're going to see them no matter what they do. Now, this is a spiritual gift, and probably most likely has something to do with a purpose that you have in life, a karma, as you will. And that spiritual gift should be cultivated. It should be cultivated in order to assist other people, in order to be service to others. But in the interim, if it's something that bothers you too much, and it's something that you don't want, then it may be okay for a time to suppress that gift using the technique that I just outlined, by forgiving yourself for having any fear of these things. All right? Either way, you should forgive yourself and bring that fear into your heart and say, this is no longer going to be me. I forgive myself for allowing myself to feel fear of this stuff. From here no more. So keep that in mind. But if it is something that has always been part of your life, and you've always seen spirits, and you've always seen ghosts, and you can hear ghosts and spirits come and speak to you clearly, that is a clear gift, and you should use that gift to help others. Okay? All right. So this is the reality from an agnostic perspective, of what angels and demons are. They're just another cog in the machine of life that is here to serve a purpose in order for us to grow spiritually and come closer to God, and closer and one with God, in other words. So knowing that these are just machines, a cog in the machine, that's when you start taking back your power, and you can start understanding then what is the lesson that I need to be learning here from these experiences of seeing angels or demons or ghosts or whatever the case may be. So I hope that you've learned something insightful, that you learned something new. If you did, please leave a like and a subscribe. Let me know in the comments if you don't believe in this, or you've had an experience of something that you saw, a ghost or whatever, and put in the comments what you've learned. What was the lesson that you've learned in that experience? So let us know. But to conclude the video, I know that I have no physical verifiable proof of any of the things that I believe or say on these videos, right? Neither does anybody else have any proof of what they believe. So we can go round and round and talk about what we believe, and nobody has proof. It's just matters of faith and belief. So it's a pickle, no doubt about it. So I get it. So each and every one of you are going to have to make up your own damn mind of who you're going to believe. All right? Have a good one.